Greetings, citizens. Hey you beautiful creepy human being you, and welcome to today's video. I am so happy that you are here. I am so happy that somehow in all of this that we're forced to deal with on the day-to-day, today you and I were able to find each other on this crazy little planet that we call home. My name is Brittany or BRATTERSTEIN, whichever you prefer, and today we're going to be having a Halloween compilation video, a collection of spooky stories. But before we get started, if you have not yet had the pleasure, please make sure to join the Brat Pack by subscribing and ringing that bell. I put out a new video every single week, sometimes 2 a week like this week, and I would love to hang out with you. Yes, you specifically you, but I can only do that if you join the Brat Pack and become one of us. One of us. Now, with all that said, we can go ahead and get into this video. Now, this video, as I said, is a compilation video. It is October 31st. It is Halloween when I am uploading this, so I wanted to give you guys a little something extra. And I know some of you miss when I would tell the spooky stories and when I would do the makeup. So this video is a compilation of when I used to do just that. It's all true stories of hauntings, of spirits, of spooky stuff that has happened to people in the past, or that people have said has happened to them in the past. You tell me what you believe and what you don't believe. And I'm doing Halloween makeup looks at the same time. So I wanted to put this out so that you guys could have something great to watch on Halloween, or something, that you think is great. Everyone has different opinions here, but you guys seem to like the things that I do, and I just want to give you guys something back, I can't do much. I'm just a person here on the internet, but I wanted to do what I could. So that's what this is going to be. It's going to be a hours-long video of spooky stories and fun makeup, and just my thank you for always being here every Monday watching these videos when you really don't have to. So with all that said, if you are a Halloween bee, or you just like me, which was a rhyme that I did not mean to do, and you want to see some spooky makeup while hearing some scary stories, just keep on watching. Greetings, friends. Hey you, how you doing? Welcome back. And if you're new here, welcome to my channel, and welcome to my very first Halloween series, Halloween 2020. I would love it if you would join the Brat Pack by subscribing and ringing that bell. I put out new videos every week, both true crime and beauty related, and I would love to hang out with you. And you're here at a very special time. It's October. It's spooky season. So normally on this channel, I do a thing called morbid makeup, where I tell you a true crime story while putting makeup on my face. It's like a twist on the classic Get Ready With Me in the beauty industry, but get ready with murder, creepy. Well, since it's spooky season, we're going to be putting a twist on what we've already twisted. For the whole month of October, I'm going to be doing a 2-video-a-week series, which I have coined the name Halloween, like Halloween and BRATTERSTEIN. I know, it's just perfect. So in this series, I'm going to be telling you a story that inspired a supernaturally charged horror movie that, wait for it, was based on a true story. Dun, dun, dun! And instead of beauty makeup like we normally do, I bought some face paint. I got some other face paint. I got some blood. These two I already had. I bought this. And I'm going to be doing some approachable Halloween looks that maybe you could recreate if you want. I want to make these looks easily replicated because, okay, during Halloween, there's a lot of videos that come out with really cool SFX stuff, which I love. I've done enough SFX video in the past, and I've done looks on myself. But I feel like the majority of people aren't actually recreating those because they don't have the items or the skill set, or they just don't want to do all that. You know what I'm saying? Especially since, I don't know about where you live, but Halloween is canceled where I live. Kids aren't even allowed to trick-or-treat as far as I remember, which, I mean, good, because coronavirus. I doubt you want to be putting like latex and cotton and fake blood and all that on your face when you can't go anywhere, or you just don't have time. You know what I mean? So this year, I'm going to keep it simple. If you like this and you want to do it again next year, maybe I could jazz it up and do some SFX stuff, because I do love doing that and I have all the stuff to do it. So with that said, we're going to start Halloween with a bang. We're going to be discussing the true story that inspired arguably one of the most popular horror movies of all time, The Exorcist. That's right, friends. The Exorcist is apparently based on a true story. If you're unfamiliar with The Exorcist, which I seriously doubt, is a movie that was based on a book that was written by a man named Peter Blatty. It was released in 1973, over 20 years after the real-life events took place, and this movie rocked the nation. The movie was nominated for 10 Academy Awards and actually won 2, and it is highly regarded and considered one of the scariest movies of all time. And it's inspired by true events. True story. That's crazy. What? Okay, you all. So, come, gather around my campfire, and let's chat about The Exorcist. So our story begins in the late 1940s in a nice brick front colonial style home in a cute little suburb area of Maryland. From the outside, you would never think that anything amiss was going on inside of this nice little house with its 4 windows facing the street. But inside, there were strange things happening, scary things happening, supernatural things happening. So, though the whole family did experience these supernatural occurrences, the main focus of the haunting seemed to be around the family's one and only child. A normal, quiet, unassuming 13-year-old boy whose true identity has been kept a secret. Through most articles, you'll find different names, but he's mostly referred to as Roland Doe. So, Roland was born to a Catholic family that was fairly religious. Well, all of them except for Aunt Harriet, because Aunt Harriet was a little bit of a spooky bitch. I got the vibe that Aunt Harriet was a bit witchy and was into the supernatural and the occult. So her and Roland, when they would hang out, they would do spooky things like playing with a Ouija board. She introduced him to Ouija. So that's what they would do. Roland and Aunt Harriet would sit together and play with the Ouija board. Real family bonding time, real casual. Have you guys ever used a Ouija board? I have not. I'm kind of curious if anyone has, and if anyone has any cool stories, because, I don't know if I believe it. So let me know about your experiences. So after using the Ouija board, things would start to happen in the house that the family just couldn't explain, and things just felt a little weird. The house felt haunted. There were things and noises that they'd hear that they just could not understand. They'd hear random noises, they'd hear voices, they'd hear footsteps, and items would move around the house that they couldn't remember moving themselves, but they weren't sure. Spoiler alert, they didn't move them themselves. So, curious, the family would try to test the entities to see if they were actually there. They'd say, knock 3 times if you're there, and they would get responses. So, sadly, Aunt Harriet died in late January of 1949, but after her death, things seemed to shift, get worse, and Roland seemed to be more and more affected. First, Roland would hear the sounds of loud dripping coming from behind his walls, and then he'd hear the sound of scratching coming from beneath his floorboards. And scariest of all is Roland's bed would start to move by itself while he was laying in it. No, thank you. I would be out of there so fast. So Roland started to get distant, withdrawn, and he started to get physical injuries on his body. Roland's attacks were said to come in cycles where he'd be normal during the day, even calm, and then at night he would change and he'd have aggressive outbursts where he would scream like bloody murder. So Roland's family tried to do whatever they could internally to help Roland, within the household, blessing him with holy water and doing religious candles. I don't know anything about Catholicism, but nothing was working that they were trying at home. It only seemed to make things worse. So his family's freaking out, right? They just want to help him, and he's getting worse. So they try to get him help from everyone they could think of. They talked to actual medical doctors. They talked to mental health doctors. They even talked to their local minister, but no one could do anything for Roland. So Roland's family took Roland to a Catholic church. And while there, he met with a couple of ministers. But while he was meeting with these ministers, Roland could not focus on what they were saying, and all he could do was stare at the Bible that they held. So the priest was like, oh no, this boy is hella possessed. So they asked him his name, and Roland responded in Latin, I am legions. So what do you do at this point, right? Okay, if you're in a haunted house, you leave, but you got a haunted son. So one of the fathers suggests at this point that Roland be admitted to a hospital, but at this hospital it was run by priests. So Roland goes and he stays there, but the possession just seems to be getting worse and worse. So one of the fathers asked for permission to perform an exorcism on Roland, and this request was approved. So the priest did try to do an exorcism on Roland. He tried several times over a period of 3 days, but found it to be completely unsuccessful. And at one point, it even got so bad so that, Roland had been strapped down to the bed so that he wouldn't hurt himself or anybody else in the room while he was being exorcised. And at one point, he broke free of his restraints because he was strong as hell, apparently. He ripped a spring from his mattress and he cut the priest from wrist to inner elbow.
No.
So at this point, the father decided to stop. He was like, well, guys, I'm gonna go now. But no, he was like, so your son's doomed. He's been completely taken over by demons. I'm gonna have to ask you to leave. The door's over there. And so the family left and like, oh, okay then. Your son is doomed. Sorry, LOLs. The demons have just won. Sorry. I don't know what to tell you, man. I did all I could. So while back at home, Roland's mother started to notice that Roland was getting scratches and burns and abrasions all over his body with no apparent cause. Amongst the injuries, there was a set of injuries that looked to spell out the word St. Louis. I guess that's 2 words. The words St. Louis, which is oddly specific, and it was like branded into his skin. So Roland's mother was like, maybe that means we should go visit our family who lives in St. Louis and look for help there. So that's what they did. So while in St. Louis, the cousin was able to put Roland's family in touch with 2 priests, Walter Halloran and William Bodern. So these priests were like, oh shit. Upon meeting him, they're like, yeah, homeboy's definitely possessed. And they decided that they were going to also try to do an exorcism with the help of several assistants to try to, hold Roland down so no one gets slashed up, right? Right. So during the time that Roland spent with these priests, Bodern actually kept a journal, like a very detailed journal that kept all the details of the exorcism and all of the spooky events that took place while he was with Roland in general. And that, my friends, is where we get the information for this story, straight from the priest's mouth. These notes were also used later to write a book, which I actually purchased in preparation for this video, called Possessed, the True Story of an Exorcism. See? I wasn't lying. Here's the book right here. I bought it on Amazon used. I found it. It's mine forever. Used, good condition. So the priests and their assistants gathered at the home that Roland was staying at in March of 1949 in hopes that they will be able to exorcise the demons that have plagued Roland's body. During the exorcisms, the boy's bed shook violently, and every day for a month they tried to exorcise him, and they kept seeing scratches and cuts appear on his body. At one point, they saw what they believed to be the marks of a pitchfork run from his ankle to his upper thigh. So at one point during the grueling exorcism, Bodern noticed that an X had formed in the cuts on Roland's chest, and he took this to believe that it was a 10, a Roman numeral 10, that stood for the number of demons that inhabited Roland's body. 10 demons. 10 of them. No thank you. Am I right? Okay. So it started to get so bad that Bodern thought that he didn't have the capability of expelling the demons on his own. And homeboy started to freak out. He was like, oh shit, better call in my friends. So we called in some more priests, and they had like an all hands on deck situation. Like, we need to get these out of this boy. 13-year-old boy. He's just trying to live his life. Possessed. So Roland was pretty intense with the priests. He would verbally abuse them. He would demean them. He'd offer them sexual favors and threaten them with violence. Because, demons. I've seen Supernatural. I get it. They're not nice. They said Roland had the strength of a full-grown man, so when he threatened them with violence, they believed him. And for nearly 3 weeks, they tried to exorcise Roland, but nothing was working. Roland had begun urinating in his bed and was still cursing at the priests. This Staples looks stupid. So since there was not much progress happening and Roland's parents were obviously upset seeing what was happening, the priests then moved Roland to another medical hospital where he was kept in solitary confinement. Blood. Okay, so finally, April 18th, the Monday after Easter Sunday. How fitting, demons. Roland awoke to full-on seizures. Roland screamed at the priests that Satan was in him and always would be. So the priests tried to do what they could, putting holy items on his skin to freak out the demon, rosaries, whatever is holy. I don't know, man. So they put holy items on him, trying to get Satan to chill out, because he's like, I am Satan, I am here forever. And they're like, not good. Can you imagine being a priest and just being like, I want to spread the gospel, and then all of a sudden you got this little demon boy needing to be exorcised? You're like, this is not what I signed up for. It just felt like that at their job. Like, you get something and you're like, This is more than a bargain for you. Okay, so the priests were getting desperate, so they decided they were going to baptize Rowan. So they did, and then they gave him the communion, body of Christ, the little cracker, I assume is what they're talking about. If the cracker is not what communion is, please tell me, because I don't know. That's what I just assume that it is the body of Christ. I was always down with like the blood of Christ. You know what I'm saying? Is that rude? I don't like for it to be rude. So late that night, after the priest had been repeatedly calling to Saint Michael to expel the demons from the boy's body, they were like, Saint Michael will fight for your soul. Will fight for you. So after the priest did that for a little while, Roland, Mr. Satan Forever, changed his tune a little bit. Instead of yelling, I am Satan, I will be here forever, he started to yell that he was, in fact, the Archangel Michael. Archangel Michael? He started to yell that he was the Archangel Michael and that Satan needed to get the fook out, mate. So a few minutes later, Roland, who had gone into a little bit of a trance, woke up from the trance and simply said, he's gone. He later said that he had a vision that Michael had 86 the devil right out of his body. And that was it. Apparently, Roland was cured, and he never had another instance of any sort of demonic possession for ever again. And he went on to live his little normal anonymous life. The only reason we even know about this at all is because the priest kept really good diaries, and then from those diaries we got, 2 killer books, and then the oh-so-famous movie, The Exorcist. The movie obviously took some liberties. Roland became Reagan, a little girl instead of a little boy. Roland never spit pea soup everywhere, and as far as we know, Roland never masturbated with a crucifix. Or did he? Who knows? I don't know. And that's it, guys. That's the true story of Roland Doe that inspired one of the scariest horror movies of all time. And this is the look that we came up with. Little Halloween look to go along with it. I realize I probably could have done, I don't know, Reagan from The Exorcist, but I feel like with that, I'd want to do more special effects, more latex and stuff like that. So the looks aren't necessarily going to correspond with the movies, but I think this is a cute little look that you could easily recreate. Like, look at it. It's mostly paint. I, added blood because I had it, but this could be done with simply paint and no, glam makeup with it. But, I'm a glam bitch. What can I say? I like makeup. That's my channel. So I wanted to make it a little spicy. I'm going to be telling you the true story that then inspired a supernaturally charged horror movie that was, wait for it, based on a true story. Dun, dun, dun. And instead of beauty and makeup like I normally do, I'm going to do a Halloween look for you that will be easy and approachable and not too difficult to recreate. Okay, so now that we're all caught up on what this is, today's story is going to be on the haunting of the Perron family. And this particular haunting story inspired one of my favorite horror movies that's come out in the last couple years, and that is called The Conjuring, which, if you haven't seen it, highly suggest. 10 out of 10, very good film. Now, gather around my campfire, children, and I will tell you the story of the Perron family haunting. Almost didn't blow out. That would have been embarrassing for me. So it's January of 1971, and the Perron family, that consisted of Carolyn, the mother, Roger, the father, and the couple's 5 daughters. That's right, 5 kids. Already scary stuff. Well, this family, the Perron family, all 7 of them move into a 10-bedroom farmhouse in Rhode Island. And so begins every horror movie ever. Well, every house haunting horror movie ever. Does anyone else automatically get scared of big houses like that? Like 10 bedrooms, okay. So there's 10 places that a burglar could hide, or in this case, a ghost or a demon. Plus, additionally, who was cleaning these 10 bedrooms? I guess that's why they had 5 kids, maybe? I don't know. As my mother said, brought you in this world to clean up the house. Anyone else's mother say that? Okay, so big family, 10 rooms, 5 kids, 2 adults, move into the house, Harrisville, Rhode Island. And immediately they start to notice some strange things happening, as one does in these stories. So it started small, as it usually does, with Carolyn, seeing the broom move by itself or hearing scratching noises coming from the kitchen. When she'd enter the kitchen, surprise, no one in there. Sometimes after she would hear the noises or see the broom moving by itself, there would be food, debris, kitchen things in a pile on the floor that looked like they had been swept there, but she never swept. And things escalated to the point that the beds would shake and lift off the ground every morning. No, 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 no. So, if all of that wasn't scary enough, because I gotta be honest, all of that would be scary enough for me, the kids started to see full-body apparition spirits. The girls said that they saw a full-body apparition of a young boy running around their house, trying to get them to play with him and moving around all of their toys. Most of the spirits the girls did describe as harmless, but some of them they said were not harmless, were mean, terrifying, and violent. The girls said that there was one spirit that would just appear in the corner of their bedroom and stare at them while they played and just smile at them like a really creepy smile. Like, I can't, I'm not a malicious spirit, but I imagine it's something similar to that. So with the beds levitating off to the ground and slamming to the floor, other furniture just sliding across the room on its own, the photo frames flying off the walls almost daily, Carolyn got a little freaked out, obviously. So, terrified of what was going on in her home, Carolyn decided she wanted to look into the history of the house, be like, what could have happened that's making this happen? And she found that prior to them living there, the house had been in the same family for 8 generations, and that a lot of people in that family had died in very suspicious ways. Several people have committed suicide, naturally, and there are even a couple of murders. I don't know what that is, but it'll come together, I'm sure of it. So one of the most terrifying spirits in the house was a woman who had a broken neck, and she seemed to be like the driving force in most of the hauntings and was the most aggressive. And in the movie, she was given the name Bathsheba. During one of her attacks, Bathsheba claimed that she, not Carolyn, was the head of this household, and she was threatened by Carolyn's position of power in the home. It was her home. So, in doing some research, it turns out Bathsheba, real person, her name was Bathsheba Sherman, and she lived on the Perron's property in the 1800s. Nothing good came out of the 1800s, am I right? So, Miss Sherman, Bathsheba Sherman, when she was alive, she was known to be a Satanist, and there was even suspicious that she had been involved in the death of a neighbor kid. But there was never any way to prosecute her, and she never went to trial for it. Anyway, though it was never confirmed, the family believed that the spirit with the broken neck was Bathsheba and that she was the one who was terrorizing their home and their family and their lives. So even though Bathsheba was like big mama spirit in the house, there were other spirits that would terrorize the family as well. And with these spirits would come the smell of rotting flesh. So the family said that they would often smell that scent coming from the basement. So they would be like doing everything in their capability not to get out of the basement because fuck all that noise, right? But sneaky little ghosts would often turn off the family's heat in their home, which would cause the father to have to go to the basement to rectify the cold-ass house situation. When down in the basement, Roger would be overwhelmed with the feeling of dread, sorrow. He would smell the rotting flesh. He would feel cold spots while walking around, and he would just feel the overall presence surrounding him, suffocating him. He wanted to go upstairs. He was not about that life, which I get it. The hauntings just seem to be getting worse with everything else that we've discussed, like pictures flying off the wall, things moving by themselves, hearing voices, seeing apparitions. Well, the girls started to get their hair pulled in the night. They'd be sleeping and it would just be like, rip them across the bed. And they started to hear whispers in their ears that was telling them that there were bodies buried within their walls. That's terrifying. Can you imagine being a little girl and just, there's bodies in your walls, and then getting your hair pulled in the night? No. So Carolyn, who seemed to be the main focus of Bathsheba, the broken neck woman spirit, would start to now get physical injuries on her body as the possession and the haunting progressed. She would feel like she was being pinched or slapped, but obviously no one was there. And it got so bad that she would find punctures in her legs just out of nowhere. And then whole leg. Demon. No. And they would be so bad that she would actually bleed from these injuries. So things are getting serious. Now it's no game. So they need to call in some heavy hitters. Do something about this demon problem because shit's getting real. You feel me? Which, I mean, shit was already real in my opinion. I would have already tried to figure out how to get out of there. But I guess, like, being physically injured is like, maybe we do something now. So, Scared that things seemed to be getting worse instead of better and things were escalating, now there was physical injuries, the family contacted paranormal investigators and husband and wife, Ed and Lorraine Warren, for help. Ed was a World War II veteran and a retired police officer who was now a self-taught demonologist, and Lorraine was a clairvoyant and a psychic and a medium who could contact the dead and get visions. So at this point in their career, Ed and Lorraine Warren were pretty well known in the field of paranormal investigation. In 1952, they had opened up the New England Society for Psychic Research, and that is now considered the oldest psychic research facility in New England. And they hunt ghosts. That's basically what it's for. They are ghost hunters. What a job. Can you imagine? No, thank you. Let me just go out and hunt some ghosts. I've thought about doing this, but I am a giant baby and I will not do it. So they were already pretty well known, but Ed and Lorraine gained quick notoriety and popularity in the field of ghost hunting and paranormal research after their part in the investigation of the Amityville Horror House. So, over the 10-year-long period that the Perron family stayed in that Rhode Island farmhouse, and yeah, you heard me right, this family, even though they were experiencing this, stayed for 10 years. No, thank you, sir. But anyways, over those 10 years, the Warrens, paranormal investigators, came over several times to investigate the happenings that were going on inside the house. So at one point, Lorraine Warren tried to conduct a seance to try to, communicate with the spirits that were in the house. And when she did this, Carolyn became possessed. Carolyn started speaking in tongues and in a voice not her own. Scary. And then the chair that she was sitting on, it raised from the ground and slammed itself across the room with her in it. In the movie, they showed that this happened during an exorcism, but Lorraine and Ed swear up and down that they never performed any sort of exorcism because it wasn't their place to do that, and that was like a priest's thing. But who actually knows? I don't know. Do you know? So Roger, who had just watched, his wife get possessed and speak in tongues get thrown across the room, he realized that, I don't know, maybe these paranormal investigators are making things worse instead of making things better. So he was like, I'm going to have to ask you politely to go. Just thanks, but no thanks. I'm going to need you to go. So he kicked them out, asked them never to come back, hoping that that would appease the spirits and they would chill because they were not chill at this point. Super, super not chill. So the family then stayed in the home until they were financially able to move out in 1980. Can you imagine going through all that and just being like, well, we threw all of our money into this house, so we just got to ride this out, guys. Sorry for the realness, but this is your life. Get used to it. No, poor guys, no. I mean, I get it. Houses are expensive. I don't have a house. If I bought a house, it would have been with all of my life savings, so I understand not being able to afford to leave. But man, would you be able to stay? I don't think I could. I think I'd just be like, well, gonna have to be living on the street. I don't know. I don't know what I would do. What would you do? I don't know. But I guess after that, when the family left in 1980, they were cured. Everything was fine. They never experienced any type of haunting ever again. And they just have like a weird thing in their past that they got a party story, Like, want to hear about the time I lived in a haunted ass house and my wife got possessed and my kids were getting ripped around by their ponytails? But you know what? The family insists that it was real and that it happened. One of the daughters even wrote a book about it, and Lorraine and Ed Warren corroborated that it happened, and they stick to their guns on this. Ed Warren, unfortunately, passed away in 2006, but Lorraine Warren was still alive at the time that the Conjuring movies were made. And I did say movies. There's actually 2 Conjuring movies. But Lorraine Warren was a consultant on the Conjuring movies, and she helped them write them and prepare them. And she said, and it said that she made sure that they didn't take too many liberties. Of course, they took some liberties, but not too many, because she wanted to get the story out there, I guess. Lorraine, unfortunately, did die as well. At this point, she died in 2019, so she is no longer with us. That's rude. I'm sorry. And that's the story of the true events of the Perron family, the haunting that inspired The Conjuring. What do you guys think? Do you think it's real? The Warrens swore it was true. The Perrons still swear that it's true to this day. So I don't know. Do you believe in this stuff? I don't know if I do. But regardless, whether you believe in it or not, it's October. It's spooky season. This is the time for ghost stories. Am I right? It's time to hang out, have some fun, hang out around my campfire. I already blew the candle out, but just have some fun and take our minds off the actual horror that is America in 2020. Am I right? And this is the look we came up with. I think it's cute. I like it a lot. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do. I didn't know I was going to go this ham. I think it looks really cool. I knew for sure I wanted to do a skull because I know a lot of ladies like to do sugar skulls for Halloween because they want to be like spooky, but they also want to be hot. I get it. Going out, man catching, or just wanting to feel good. But I don't love the look of painting the whole face white, so I decided to do something a little more fun. And I was inspired by my shirt, my ponytail, and my nails. So I want to do like a neon-y sugar skull, and I think it's pretty cute. I know it's not really a sugar skull, it's just a skull, but I think it's a nice alternative. What do you think? Do you like it? If you recreate it, tag me, BRATTERSTEIN on Instagram. I'd love to see it. So today's video is going to be a sequel to last week's video, which if you missed it, I would highly suggest watching it. It's on The Conjuring 1, which is based on the haunting of the Perron family. Very good. And I mean, I enjoyed the video, so I think you'd enjoy it as well. Well, today we're going to be discussing the events that inspired The Conjuring 2. Because actually that would come next. Conjuring 1, Conjuring 2, 1, 2, duh. Footnote, if you haven't seen The Conjuring 1 or The Conjuring 2 and you are a horror fan, 10 out of 10 would recommend watching them. All of the movies that I'm going to be discussing through Holocene are all killer horror films, in my opinion. And I recommend them all totally. Just so you know, if you haven't seen any of these, I would say watch them. So now, children, come in close, gather around my campfire, and let me tell you the story of the Enfield Poltergeist. So, 6 years after the Perron family hauntings that inspired the movie The Conjuring 1, in 1977, the Hodgson's family from Enfield, England started to experience a similar haunting themselves. So picture this, it's August 1977, and you see this beautiful little brick front suburban semi, which I had to look up what a semi was, because I'm from the United States, I've never heard that term, and apparently it's what you would call like a duplex here, like two units connected. It had a dreamy little bay window, which I love. Can't wait till the day I live in a place that has one of those. And inside lived a single mother named Peggy Hodgson's and her 4 children, Johnny, Janet, Margaret, and Billy. So the family started to hear little knocks and bangs in the night, but they chalked it up to nothing. You know, it's just someone outside, a neighbor, someone trying to break into the house, you know. Casual stuff. But it escalated to the point that the kids, particularly Janet, would have their beds start shaking at night with no explanation. But of course, Peggy was skeptical, as anyone would be. You wouldn't just expect that your house is haunted. Your kids are just being dramatic. Or lying, as little kids sometimes do. Stinking liars. Well, stinking liars. Bed's moving at night. Okay, Janet, go to bed. Until late one evening, Peggy was in bed when she started to hear her children screaming from their room down the hall. So she got up, probably pissed off, going in there to be like, quiet down, young children, ladies, boys, mom's trying to sleep, pipe down, pipsqueak. Well, she headed to talk to the kids and see what all of the hullabaloo was about. So Peggy bursts through the door, and when she does, she finds her 2 small daughters huddled together in a corner, not moving, and she's like, "What's up? What are you doing? What's wrong?" They said that their dresser had moved on its own. Oh my God, what did I do to this brow? So, just as Peggy utters the words, "Oh, don't be silly, girls," the girl's dresser slides across the bedroom and by itself towards Peggy, who's standing in front of the bedroom door. No. So Peggy put out her hands and she tried to push it back, which is like, girl power, go Peggy. That's very brave. I'd probably leave. But she tried to push it back and it wouldn't move. It wouldn't budge at all. And when she took her hands off, it budged, it like went towards her again. It seemed like it was trying to block them into the bedroom. And as I'm sure you can imagine, this scared the shit out of Peggy and her kids. So, in a very smart move, which you don't normally hear about in these haunting situations, Peggy gathered her troops and got the hell out of that house, running to a neighbor's house for refuge and help. So upon arriving at Peggy's neighbor's house, she asked the man of the house if he would mind and go and check on her home and see if everything was okay. And I would just imagine how that conversation goes. It would be like, yeah, the dresser, it like moved on its own and tried to crush me as the door. Could you just go over and be like a big strong man and check for me and see if everything's okay? Please, please, please. Can you imagine being that neighbor and hearing that request and being like, your masculinity would be challenged so much. On one hand, you're like, no, how about you get out of here with all of your kids? This is so not my problem. But on the other hand, he's like, I don't do this. I'm pussy. I don't know what to do. Everyone's going to think I'm lame. The 70s. So he goes over and is immediately overcome with fright when entering the house, and he starts to hear knocking coming from inside of the walls. So he left because he's smart, and when he got back to the house, he was just like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to tell you. And he was a big guy, and he was like drained of color in the fear. So Peggy called the cops, and man, I would love to hear that 911 call. You know, I guess it's not a 911 call because 911 is America's emergency number. Well, either way, I'd like to hear that phone call to the emergency services in England, because imagine what it sounds like. But they sent somebody, and the cops showed up around 1 a.m. and they're inside talking, getting the gist of what happened, probably thinking that these people are crazy out of their minds, when an armchair moves from one side of the kitchen, I think it was in the living room, and slides across the entire kitchen, and the police see this. And I can just imagine they were kind of like, well, that's odd. Don't see that one every day. So they, of course, tried to investigate and see if they could find what happened to make the chair move, and they cannot explain it. And the police left. They were like, well, I mean, that's weird, but this isn't really a police matter. So they were like, sorry, I guess you're gonna have to figure this out on your own, guys. And they just left. But they always claimed that this did happen. They've never denied it. And I mean, why? What purpose do they have to lie about this? I don't know. It's kind of spooky. So after a few more days of strange things happening, you know, items moving on their own, appliances turning on and off, the lights flickering, you know, the ghost works, Peggy decides to call the Daily Mirror. From what I gathered, because I looked into this, it's kind of like a tabloid in England. Like, you know, the magazines you see in the racks at the grocery store, like who's banging who's got the most atrocious beach body you could ever imagine. Those types of magazines. So the magazine sent over a reporter and a photographer, and the two men stayed in the Hodgson house overnight with the Hodgson's family at a neighbor's house. So they weren't in the house. And while they were there that night, nothing strange happened. So the two men were like, okay, nothing going on here. Let's bounce, right? They're on their way out. And so they go next door to let Peggy and the kids know that they're going to be leaving. So Peggy and the kids and the reporter and the photographer all head back over to the house together. I don't know why they went back, since they just said they were leaving, but they go back over together with the family to the house. Now, as soon as the reporter and the photographer entered the home with the family, things wilded out a little bit. Small toys like Legos and marbles started like swirling around the room, willy-nilly like, and both the reporter and the photographer claimed to have seen this, the photographer being struck by a rogue Lego in the head hard enough to leave a mark. It was a run-by fruiting. So the Daily Mirror got in contact with a paranormal investigator by the name of Maurice Gross, who ended up going to the house and spending a ton of time with the Hodgson's family. He was very, very determined in finding life after death. This was his thing. He had become a paranormal investigator after his daughter, whose name was Janet, which is kind of strange. Two Janets in the story. Well, after she died, tragically, he became a paranormal investigator, probably because, you know, he missed his daughter, I imagine. It's really sad. So Maurice spent a lot of time with the family, documenting all of the strange happenings that he noticed in the house, such as freshly folded clothing that was, you know, sitting on the table would fly off the table willy-nilly. Rude, first off. There would be items that would just materialize out of thin air, like coins and stuff would just be like ding, and then just be there. You know, items, furniture would move around the house by itself, stuff like that he documented. So Maurice wanted to try to communicate with the spirits, right? So he was like, okay, knock 1 time for yes, 2 times for no, and let's see what's going on, right? So he asked the spirit, he was like, hey, did you die in this house? And the spirit knocked 3 times. Cheeky little whip off. And he was like, are you messing with me? Are you playing with me, spirit? And that is when a cardboard box that had been sitting across the room flew at him and hit him in the face. So about a month later, in late September, the family left their home to go and stay at Peggy's brother's house. They probably just wanted like a night away, a night of peace, maybe a good night's sleep away from all the craziness. So they went to Peggy's brother's to spend the night. But unfortunately, while there, they found out that it seems like the spirit was not attached to the house, but to a specific person, because while in the kitchen, John's wife was making a cup of tea when a Lego materialized out of thin air and dropped on the counter in front of her. What? What? No thank you to that. It actually makes sense if you think about the rest of the story, that the spirits were connected to a person and not a place, considering when the reporter and the photographer were at the house and the family wasn't in the house, nothing happened. But as soon as the family returned, something did happen. And that's because the focus, the main thing that this spirit was focused on, was the family's young daughter, Janet. Janet would wake up in the night to strange noises or voices in her ears. Sometimes she would even be sleeping and have her pillow ripped out from under her head and thrown across the room. One night in November of 1977, Janet had been sleeping in her bed when all of a sudden the bed came off the ground. The frame tipped over, Janet fell out of the bed, and her mattress fell on top of her, crushing her. Janet would go to bed in her bed, and then she would wake up in different places. Sometimes she'd be under her bed. Sometimes she would just be like strewn about over a random piece of furniture. And sometimes she would just be simply thrown from her bed while she was asleep. At one point, Maurice Grosse, while he was staying in the house, he witnessed Janet's bedroom door open on its own. And then Janet starts sliding down the interior stairs in her home head first. Just sliding down, dead asleep. So since Janet was the main focus of the spirit's, hauntings, when paranormal investigators came to the house a little bit later, they decided to have Janet in the room while they tried to contact the spirits of the house, because they figured if she was around, maybe they'd talk. Maybe they'd be more likely to talk since they like Janet, like, here's your friend, let's have a chat. While this happened, they were trying to talk to the spirits. All of a sudden, a whistle came from within Janet. She was like totally in a trance, and a weird whistle came out of her mouth before the voice of a grown-ass man came out of this 12-year-old girl's mouth. And this, if you Google this, you can actually hear the audio, and it's very scary sounding. And apparently this came out of a 12-year-old girl's mouth. The voice claimed that he was a man named William Wilkins who had died of a hemorrhage. Well, now that the people had tried to communicate with the spirit, the haunting got worse, and Janet started straight levitating, just all over her house. Good job. Good job, guys. So now things are starting to get more intense. And with the intensity and the popularity of the haunting, in flocks all of the paranormal investigators. So naturally, who shows up? But Ed and Lorraine Warren. They contacted Peggy and they were like, hey, we want to come check out your house, please, and thank you. And so they do. And they make an appointment to come and hang out. You remember Ed and Lorraine from last week's video, yes? Yes. So same Ed, same Lorraine. If you want to know more about them, please watch the first video. But for a quick little synopsis, Ed is a demonologist and Lorraine is a psychic medium. So as soon as Ed and Lorraine walk into the house, they are convinced that the family and the home is being invaded by a demonic presence. During these meetings with the Warrens, they reported seeing items levitating around the home, things materializing out of thin air, and scariest of all, they watched wallpaper that had been on the walls just rip from the walls without anyone touching it. It was just like, that's it. It was gone. And it seems so unbelievable, but just like in The Conjuring 1, how we discussed that Lorraine was a consultant on that movie, she was also a consultant on The Conjuring 2, and she swears up and down that this actually happened. So, just like in our first video in the series, The Exorcist, this one also has an anticlimactic ending. They never have big, like Hollywood blockbuster bang endings. It's always just kind of like, it's over. In late 1979, a priest came to the house and performed a blessing. And after that, the events just sort of fizzled out and stopped. Just like that. One blessing. That's all it took from a priest. So, unlike in the movie, there was no big showdown between Lorraine Warren and the evil demon nun. And of course, and unfortunately, we didn't get to have Ed Warren sit and play guitar for the kids. He didn't play Fools Rush In for the kids. That stuff didn't happen. But the family said they didn't do anything additional to cleanse the house. It was just the priest coming and doing a blessing, and that was it. They didn't do anything else to try to fix it. And the movie definitely over-exaggerated, in my opinion, the Warrens' involvement. Like, they were there a little bit, but poor Maurice, man. Maurice was there through the nitty-gritty every time, and he's just like a footnote in the movie. He has a very small role, so I bet he's just like, wow, rude, I was there from the beginning, but okay, give the Warrens all the credit. Sure. So eventually the family did move out of the house, as they always do, and there was no more hauntings for Janet or anyone else in the family once they left that home, which is weird since I thought it was a haunted person and not a haunted place, but it just stopped when they moved. Later in life, Janet and her sister did admit that prior to all of the supernatural events in their home, they had played with a Ouija board, and that's the only thing they could think of that may have caused the events that took place in their home in the 70s. In today's video, we're going to be discussing the terrifying true story of the demonically possessed Raggedy Ann doll that inspired the movie Annabelle. And real quick, if you haven't seen Annabelle, I would suggest you watch it. It's a pretty decent horror movie. It's not my favorite, I'm not going to lie to you, but it is good. And if you're into demonic stuff and possession movies, spirits, all things creepy, it would be a pretty good watch. And it's especially cool because it's apparently and allegedly based on a true story. So today we're going to be discussing the string of demonic activity, near-death experiences, and one death on record that have happened over the last 40-ish years that are supposedly connected to this possessed Raggedy Ann doll. So gather around my campfire, children, and let me tell you the terrifying true story of the demonically possessed Raggedy Ann doll. So, since the 1970s, the possessed Raggedy Ann doll, given the name Annabelle, has been housed inside a wood-framed glass cage bearing a white sign with the handwritten words that say, "Warning, positively do not open," underlined 3 times. This warning is, of course, to let all who come near to know to steer clear, because this shib is dangerous. In addition to the warning sign, the Lord's Prayer has also been etched permanently into the wood that encases the glass, and a man named Ed Warren says a prayer over the glass cage every once in a while to make sure to keep the rabid demons inside at bay. Ed Warren, you must remember him from all of our other Hollowen videos, and if you don't recognize the name, that's because you are obviously not caught up, and I would highly recommend you do so because the other videos in this series have been very good, so you should go do that. But anyways, so for decades, Annabelle had been housed inside of the Warrens Occult Museum, which, side note, unfortunately is now closed. But when it was open, anyone with $75 and an appointment could go to the museum to see and learn about Annabelle. But now that the museum is closed, where is Annabelle, right? Rumor has it is that this year, in 2020 of all years, Annabelle has escaped. Please no. Not in 2020, please. We will get into that shortly, but first we're going to hop into our little handy-dandy time machine and travel to the 1970s where our story begins. So, it's 1970, and it's a young nursing student named Donna's 28th birthday. She opens up her present, pulls back the paper, and sees a smiling face and a little triangle nose looking back at her. Her mother had given her a Raggedy Ann doll for her birthday. Now, maybe the times have changed. The times have definitely changed, but for some reason, a Raggedy Ann doll for a 28-year-old seems like such a weird gift. Anyone else? But anyways, I digress. Donna was happy with her gift, and she brought it home to the apartment that she shared with another nursing student and proudly displayed it on the couch in the common area living room. As is common in most of these haunting situations, the spooky stuff started out small at first. The girls would leave the house for the day, setting the doll in the center of the couch as a nice display piece, as a Raggedy Ann doll is, I guess, in the 70s. I don't know. But they would come home, and she'd be in, a slightly different position, and I'm sure they were kind of, just laughed it off, oh, I guess we must have left her that way. We're going crazy. But as these things tend to do, things escalated, and they realized that it wasn't as innocent as it may have seemed. So before, when they would leave, they'd come home and the doll would just be in a slightly different position. Well, now they'd come home and she wouldn't be on the couch at all. So they'd just go looking for her. They're like, I know we left her there, because they're testing it at this point, right? Because they're like, this is kind of strange. So they'd start to look around, and they would find the doll in Donna's room where the door had been closed. The doll would just be sitting there nicely in the center of her bed, arms crossed, real casual. Okay, sure. They even once found the doll standing propped up against the wall. No. That's enough, right? That's when you go? That's when you get rid of this doll? No, of course not. Soon, when the girls would come home, they would start to find little notes around the house. These notes would be written on parchment paper, and they'd be in a child's handwriting, and they would just say, cute little love notes. Things like, "Help me." And though this is already odd to find these notes, it was especially odd because it was written on parchment paper, and the girls did not own parchment paper. So where did these notes come from? Where did you get the paper to write these notes? Annabelle? How'd you do this? I don't know. So, enough had become enough at this point for Donna about a month into the whole creepy possession activity. She had gone to work. She came home, and when she came home and inspected the doll, she found what looked to be blood on the doll's hands and on the doll's chest. And she was just like, well, that's extremely concerning. And she went and searched her house, and she didn't find blood anywhere. Right? So, rightfully terrified, as she was, she contacted a psychic medium. Reasonable. Who else are you going to call? Ghostbusters. So when the medium arrived and she did her little medium, song and dance, she told the girls there was no need to worry. The spirit that was invading their house wasn't dangerous. It was just simply a sad and lost spirit of a little girl named Annabelle who had lived on the property long before they had. So long before Donna and her roommate's apartment had been built on this land, the psychic medium tells her. And it had once been lush and tall, wonderful fields that this young girl, Annabelle, would frolic through. After school, she'd run around and play back there. Well, one day, tragically, her lifeless body was found in the fields directly where the apartment building now stood. And this is where Annabelle had chosen to spend all of her time now. The spirit was restless and hanging out where she had last been alive, or where her body was found. So the girls, feeling bad about poor young Annabelle's wandering and lost spirit, and feeling comforted by the medium and telling them, hey, don't worry, it's just like a chill little girl, no big deal, they decided to give the spirit permission to possess the doll so that her spirit would not wander. It's not what you do, friend. Have you never seen a horror movie, Donna? Donna's friend? No? And of course, in doing this and inviting the spirit and speaking to the spirit, communicating, having a one-on-one, things escalated. So, Donna's roommate had a boyfriend, and the boyfriend was there a lot, spending the night, spending time with his girlfriend, and he didn't really like Annabelle, right? Well, one night, he woke up with debilitating sleep paralysis, only able to move his eyeballs. So, he moved said eyeballs as he could, and when he looked down, he saw Annabelle at his feet. Oh, fuck that. Let me tell you that. We don't do that. We don't play these games, Annabelle. No. Anyways, the doll slowly slid up his legs, up his chest, and to his neck, where she proceeded to strangle him until he passed out. No. So he woke up the next morning, told the girls what happened. They were like, bro, don't worry. It was just a dream. But he was certain it wasn't a dream. And he was like, I've already been worried about how evil this doll is. This really happened. Because, he knew Annabelle was evil. Annabelle, this is your badness level. It's unusually high for someone your size. Anyways, Annabelle must have either saw the boyfriend as a threat or just didn't like him because he was targeted by her again. Okay. One night he had been at the house when all of a sudden he started to hear rustling coming out of Donna's room, but Donna wasn't home. So thinking it was a burglar, he tiptoed over to the door and he stood there and listened until he didn't hear any noise anymore. So, once the noise stopped, he entered the room. He took a few steps in and he sees Annabelle in the corner just laying there, right? So he takes a few steps towards her, and that's when he feels the hair on the back of his neck stand up. He could feel someone was behind him. I hate that feeling so much. Does anybody else, real quick, does anyone else get that feeling every time they wash their hair and they close their eyes and have to rinse out the soap? Or did the grudge just ruin me? I don't know. But anytime I'm in the shower and I'm washing my hair and I close my eyes, I swear to God, somebody's there. And I quickly, have to scramble to rinse all the soap out so I don't open my eyes and burn them. And then, of course, I open them and there's no one there. But anyways, moving on. So the boyfriend, feeling somebody behind him, quickly, spun to see who or what was behind him. And there was nothing there, but he quickly feels a sharp pain in his abdomen and he hunches over and he grabs his chest. When he pulled his hand away to be like, what the hell? What was that? It was covered in blood. So he ran out of the room to his girlfriend. He's like, girlfriend, troubles afoot, And when she checked his chest, there were several claw marks ripped across his chest in a hashtag pattern that were bleeding and hot to the touch. That came out of nowhere. And what's weird about these phantom scratches is within 2 days, apparently, they'd completely healed and were gone. Interesting. So, after this incident, Donna, who at this point, she's got to be shitting her pants, right? How could you not be? Well, anyway, Donna, she gets Donna, she gets a hold of a priest and is like, yo, there's some stuff going on here. She explains it to him, and he gets her in touch with no other than Ed and Lorraine Warren. You know them. Our good buddies, Ed and Lorraine Warren. The Warren Files, episode 600. So, in hearing the girl's story, the Warrens determined that the girls speaking with the demon by, calling the medium and inviting the demon into the doll and giving the compassion to the spirit was a bad idea. Duh. The Warrens stated that demons don't possess inanimate objects. What they do is they use these objects to make it seem like there's a ghost so that they can gain your trust and open up a dialogue, get you comfortable, get you compliant so that they can later possess you. The Warrens knew that it wasn't the spirit of a young girl who was possessing the household and the doll, because God doesn't allow children to be ghosts and spirits and possess and haunt. Okay, sure, that makes as much sense as anything else. So it must be a demon pretending to be a child to get close to the girls. Why not? Makes sense. Sure. So, other reasons that the Warrens believed that this was a demon and not a little girl is because the spirit that was infesting their life was doing some very clear-cut demon bullshit. Okay, let me break this down for you. First, the teleportation of the doll. The doll moving from room to room, going inside closed doors, all that teleportation shit, demon shit right there. 1 point for demon. Second, the materialization of the parchment notes, even though there was no parchment paper in the girl's house. 2 points for demon. And third, the scratch marks that appeared on the boyfriend's chest. Apparently, this is the mark of the beast. So this is 3 points for demon. The score, the win, all of it goes for demon. Demon. No good. Demonic possession in the house. Get the fuck out. So, the Warrens recommend that the priest who had contacted them should go to the house and perform an exorcism to bless the house and all the people inside of it from the possession. Donna then asked if Ed and Lorraine Warren would be interested in, taking the doll off her hands. Would you like to take it home? Would you like to get the fuck out of my house? Which, good for you, Donna. Good move, Donna. You never see smart people in these stories. They're always doing dumb shit, but good for Donna on being like, can you take it though, please? And they did. So, the Warrens happily agree to take the doll. They drive on over, they pick the doll up, they put it in the car, buckle it up in the back seat, son. There's a bug and a rug. They make the choice to stay off the freeways because they're like, demon, maybe they don't get some demon silly ideas in its little head. So they stayed on surface streets to, not be going too fast in case the demon did get funny ideas. And the demon did get funny ideas. And you know what? The demon did get funny ideas. Allegedly. So, apparently, according to Ed and Lorraine, that several times during their drive home with the little Annabelle doll, the brakes in their car seemed to fail, them almost getting in several accidents. So Ed reached into his little bag and pulled out a vial of holy water, splashed it on Annabelle, the power of Christ compels you, all that jazz, and apparently the brakes worked just fine after that, and everything was back to normal. Once they got the doll home, they also had experiences with the doll being able to project itself to other rooms. They would lock it in an office, and then they'd find it in their living room, stuff like that, just like Donna had experienced. So this is when the Warrens decided to place her inside of that spiffy little glass case with the sign and the prayer to keep her locked up forever, where supposedly she still is. Or is she? So, there was a rumor this year that little evil-ass Annabelle had escaped from her home where she was previously caged at the Occult Museum in Connecticut, but apparently this is untrue. Ed and Lorraine's son-in-law came out saying that it wasn't true, that Annabelle had not escaped. He took a little video of himself, and in the video he showed Annabelle in the background in her cage, so... Which I guess is good, right? I mean, we've gone through enough this year. Am I right? Can I get a high five on that? Can I get a hell yeah? But honestly, at this point, would you even be surprised if you learned that she had escaped? Like, okay, I could just see the headlines now, right? Okay, so here's us laying in our beds, scrolling on our phones. Next in line for 2020, the demonic Annabelle doll roams streets, kicking ass and taking lives. And we're just like, oh shit. Scroll. Like, not even a blink. Barely a blip in our freaking minds because of the kind of year that we have had. But apparently it is good for mankind that she stay locked up, because apparently even from within her cage, Annabelle can cause some damage. So apparently back when the museum was open, there was once a priest there hanging out, visiting, seeing all the creepy stuff. Sure. Well, while he was there, apparently he picked up the Annabelle doll, which, first off, did you not read the sign, homie? Hello? Anyways, he picked her up and he mocked her. He mocked the demon's powers, like, ooh, so big, strong demon. You do so many bad things, yeah. Well, Ed Warren was like, bro, don't do that. That thing's real dangerous. And he didn't believe him and he kept messing with it. Okay, well, apparently he should have listened to Ed because on his way home, he got into a car crash. And he said that right before the accident, which almost killed him, by the way, he saw Annabelle in the rearview mirror in his backseat. You play to it, priest. Don't do that. Additionally, there is one reporting where the Warrens say Annabelle is actually responsible for someone's death. And I'm going to tell you about that right now. So it has been said that there was once a man who visited the occult museum when it was still open. And while there, he was banging on the glass and taunting Annabelle. He was like, hey, come out here and scratch me like you did Donna's boyfriend. You remember Donna's boyfriend scratch, the hashtag, fast healing, mark of the beast, scratches on the chest. So the guy was like, come at me, come scratch me like you scratched that guy, right? Well, this guy and his girlfriend were asked to leave. They were there together. They were breaking the rules. You're not supposed to touch stuff, so they were asked to leave. Well, apparently on their drive home, they had been riding a motorcycle. They got in a motorcycle accident, and the man died. The girlfriend lived. She was in bad condition, but she lived. And she said that right before they got in their accident, they had been joking and laughing about how dumb the Annabelle doll was. Is it a little far-fetched that that's related? Maybe, but maybe not. You tell me. Real quick. I've never been on a motorcycle, but I would just like to know, isn't it too loud for you to be having a conversation? Because she says they were talking and taunting and laughing about the doll. But if you're going fast enough to get an accident that kills you, would you be able to hear each other? Please let me know, because I actually don't know. Anyway, either way, weird and scary stuff. So anyways, guys, that is the story of the demonically possessed Raggedy Ann doll named Annabelle. It's pretty fantastical, right? I think it makes it less scary that it's a Raggedy Ann doll and not like the creepy porcelain doll that we see in the movie. But don't get me wrong. If I woke up in the night and a Raggedy Ann doll was down at my legs and started like sliding up my legs and onto my chest trying to choke me out, I would shit my pants, right? Like my poor husband would be very unhappy because I shit my pants. I blind. Today's video is going to be on the terrifying true story that inspired the movie The Exorcism of Emily Rose. Now, if you have never seen this movie, bro, I know in all of the Hall of Steam videos, I was like, you should watch the movie that this is based on. But if I could recommend one, oh, I mean, they're all so good, but you need to see The Exorcism of Emily Rose. The movie itself is sort of a slow burn, but Jennifer Carpenter, Deb from Dexter, Jennifer Carpenter, her acting, truly, truly terrifying. She plays the role of a girl who's possessed by 6 demons. 6 demons, bro. It's a lot of demons. And oh my sweet God, she is so good at playing this role. She is horrifying. There's a scene. Oh my God. There's a scene at the end, the barn scene. If you've seen it, you know, and if you haven't, you got to watch it. And it is the only scene. There's 2. It's the only scene of 2 scenes that haunt me. Like if I watch that movie before bed, I have to watch something else because that scene will stick in my head. It's that scene and it's the spider crawl from The Exorcist. Those are the 2 scenes in my life that actually like physically me, and this is one of them. And it's because it's such a terrifying story and apparently and allegedly true. But you know what? I'm just really excited. I just want to get into it. So let's do that. Okay? So come gather around my campfire, children, and let me tell you the terrifying true story that inspired the movie The Exorcism of Emily Rose. So our story begins in West Germany. Anneliese Michel was born September 21st, 1952, making her a Virgo, and she was raised by her parents alongside her 3 sisters in a heavily religious household. And when I say heavily religious, I mean heavily religious. Not only did they go to mass, church, 2 times a week, which is like, that's a lot of church. Well, they were also expected to not only repent and pay penance for their own sins, but all sins for all the lost souls in the world. If they weren't gonna repent and ask for forgiveness and pay penance themselves, then Anneliese and her sister would be required by their family to do so. And I don't know if this is a normal thing in Catholicism, but for this family it was. It went so far as to even in the winters, in the cold, harsh German winters, and I imagine it gets pretty cold there. I've never been there, but I imagine it gets cold. Well, Anneliese and her sisters were required to sleep on the icy cold floor with like no blankets to pay penance for all of the souls who had lost their way to drugs. So, as you can imagine, I'm sure, growing up for Anneliese was not an easy peasy lemon squeezy type of experience, but even though it was a bit intense, she grew up happy and nice and had a good relationship with her sister and her parents. Well, her sisters, because there was 3 of them, and her parents. They were close-knit. As most religious families are, I find, as long as you are not, like, rebellious and you're, like, into the religion. That seems to be the case. Close families. Together by God and all that jazz. So we're going to fast forward a little bit to 1968. Anneliese is now 16 years old, and out of nowhere, while she's at school, she blacks out. When she finally came back to, she asked her friends and fellow students, like, what happened? Because she had no memory of what had happened to her. And they told her that she was just in a, like, zombie trance-like state all day, completely non-responsive. After that day, she didn't think about it that much. It was an isolated incident. She didn't lose time like that again, so she kind of put it in the back of her mind, moved on with her life. But unfortunately, things would get worse, and this wouldn't be the only time it would happen, and it wouldn't be an isolated incident. So a few months after this, it's 1979, Anneliese is now 17 years old, and the seizures and convulsions start. After the first seizure, her and her family rightfully and immediately go to the hospital, where she is diagnosed as epileptic, but it's a specific type of epilepsy. It's temporal lobe epilepsy, and they learned that along with this diagnosis, there would be very specific and interesting side effects that go along with the seizures. These could include memory loss, auditory, and visual hallucinations. So maybe this could explain what happens to Anneliese later, but then again, maybe not. You tell me, you draw your own conclusion, but they gave her medication and she was able to go off to university, so college. So while attending university, even though Anneliese was taking her medication as directed, her condition seemed to worsen. So at this point, in addition to the seizures, Anneliese did start having actual hallucinations. She started to see demons. She said she was seeing demons all over the place, and she started to believe that she herself was possessed by demons, and terrified, she voluntarily admitted herself into a mental hospital. While in the hospital, even though she was at this point under the care of, medical professionals, her condition just continued to get worse. The hallucinations became much more vivid and were coming much more often. She was seeing like full-on apparitions or floating faces of demons, and they would tell her that she was damned and that she would rot in hell or she would melt in hell. The visions seemed to happen and get much worse whenever she would pray, and she mentioned this to her doctor. She's like, hey, I know you said that there'd be like some hallucinations, maybe some stuff like this, but is this normal? And I guess they didn't think it was because they put her on antipsychotic medication. Now, were these visions a result of the first medication, or were these actual visions of actual demons? I don't know. So with the seizures continuing and the medication seeming not to be working, she's still hallucinating, she's still having all of these issues, she went into a deep depression. And even though Anneliese knew that taking her own life was considered a mortal sin, she still considered killing herself. She considered committing suicide several times, very often. But somehow, despite all this, despite her not getting better and her thinking of committing suicide, Anneliese was discharged from the hospital and able to go home. But unfortunately, because her condition hadn't improved, the seizures and the demons and all that, they went with her. They left the hospital and they went home with her. So for years, Anneliese dealt with these visions and these conditions and all of this awful stuff going on to her, and doctors did everything they could, but nothing really seemed to be helping her. So during this time, Anneliese reached out several times to the church for help because she thought she was possessed by demons, but they would always be like, no, silly girl, go back, go deal with your medical problems, because this is a medical problem. So they weren't helping her. But during this time, because of the medical attention not helping and the lack of help from the church, her condition had gotten so bad. She would compulsively strip her clothes off like she was burning. She would do like hundreds of squats a day for some reason. And she would even crawl under her family's kitchen table and bark at them like a dog. Typical I guess, epileptic behavior. I don't know, man. I don't have epilepsy. But that seems odd. You tell me. So, since, you know, she was under the table barking like a dog and doing the squats and taking off her clothes, along with the demon visions and the seizures and all that, Annaliese's mom was pretty freaked out. So she started reaching out to the church herself, and she actually was able to find a priest who would at the very least come and, you know, witness Anneliese, look at her, and get an actual determination on what was going on with her. So he came to watch her. And boy, did he see a lot while observing Anneliese Michel. So while the priest was there, he saw her tripping out, you know, having her visions, hallucinations, seizures, all that. But he also saw her sitting on the floor in the corner, eating coal, eating spiders. And she would proceed to urinate on the floor and then lap it up like a dog. So the priest determined that Anneliese was possessed by demons, that this was not a medical situation, her condition wasn't a medical problem, and that she needed an exorcism in order to rid her body of the demons. So he brought his findings to the church along with a letter written from Anneliese herself giving permission to perform the exorcisms. And in 1975, the first of 67 exorcisms on Anneliese Michel took place. I was not aware. See, in movies, they always make it seem like it's like a one and done exorcism thing, but every story I've read, it's like a whole thing. It's not a one and done. You got to have several exorcisms. It takes a long time. And she had 67 exorcisms in her life. Poor girl. So for 10 months, the priest that initially met up with Anneliese and a local priest that was provided by the church would exorcise Anneliese twice a week. But this was kept on like the hush hush on the down low because the church didn't want people to know that they had approved an exorcism on a little girl. Gotta keep their noses clean, that Catholic church, am I right? So during these exorcisms, Anneliese would be strapped to a bed to protect herself and also everybody else in the room. And they also made the smart choice to turn on an audio recorder during every exorcism so that there would at least be some auditory proof of what had been going on. So while being exorcised, Anneliese claimed that she was possessed by 6 demons. 6 freaking demons, dude. And this is the part where she admits what demons are inside of her. That's the part of the movie that makes me shit my pants that I was telling you about. Like, it's fucking terrifying. Can you imagine being possessed? First off, being possessed at all, and then by 6 demons? Rude. Anyways, Anneliese gave the names of these demons. We had Judas, Nero, Cain, Hitler, Fleischmann, and Lucifer in the flesh. Lucifer in the flesh, homie. No, thank you. No, thank you, sir. And during the possession, these demons would take turns speaking through her body. So she would wake up, open her eyes, she's Judas, open her eyes, she's Hitler. And I do mean Hitler, like Adolf Hitler, apparently is a demon now, go figure. And he was inside of Anneliese. And according to Judas, one of the demons inside her, even in hell, Hitler's considered to be a piece of shit. They say that nobody likes him and that he thinks he has more power than he has, and he likes to brag a lot. So Hitler still sucks even in hell, apparently. So during these 10 months, things did seem to look up for Anneliese a little bit. The exorcism seemed to be working, and she was able to return back to university, but unfortunately, the good times did not last. So by 1976, Anneliese was deteriorating again. The seizures were getting worse than ever, and at this point, she started to actually physically attack her family. And when her family wasn't available for attacking, she would start to actually just physically beat herself. Where before she would eat the spiders and the coal, at this point she wasn't eating anything at all. She had shattered her kneecaps because she would be in a standing position, and then she would just kind of jump up, bend her knees back, and let all of her weight land on her kneecaps, and then she would jump back up and do it over and over again, kneeling in prayer. Shattered her kneecaps. Ugh. And while all of this was happening, this is when Anneliese was under the care of the priests and also her parents. And though she'd broken her kneecaps and she wasn't eating, they did not get her medical attention for this and these problems. And it's likely because nothing had been helping her. They had tried the medical route for a really long time, for years, and nothing helped. So, they lost faith and didn't go back that route. Anneliese was deteriorating right before everyone's eyes. She was under 100 pounds. She had pneumonia. She had a fever. But she told the priest that she was choosing to do this, that she wasn't letting the demons leave her body because she was being punished and repenting and paying penance for the sins of the world. The last of the 67 exorcisms took place in June of 1976, and Anneliese was in such bad shape that she couldn't even walk at this point. She had to be carried because her kneecaps were broken and she couldn't bend her knees. Anneliese's last known words were, "Mother, I'm afraid," on the night of her last exorcism. And following that exorcism later in the night, Anneliese died at 23 years old, weighing less than 70 pounds. Apparently, due to Anneliese's death, her parents, along with both priests who had taken part in the exorcism, were actually charged with negligent homicide. The priests were actually charged and convicted of manslaughter due to negligence, but they didn't serve any time. Their time was waived. And the parents were let off altogether because they had suffered enough, which, the laws are different in Germany, but I feel like they definitely suffered plenty to watch your daughter go through that. Let me know what you think about that. Should they have gotten more time? I don't know. I don't know, friends. This is a super popular case in Germany, and probably for anybody who's, seen the movie, it's popular as well. But in Germany, it's particularly popular as it happened there. Apparently in Germany, buttloads of people will go and visit her grave. Like, busloads of people will come from other areas in Germany to come and witness the girl who went through so much tragic pain and who was willing to suffer so much to rid them of their sins, essentially. It's such a popular case in Germany that 2 years after her death in 1978, a crowd of people gathered at the cemetery where she was buried to watch two men dig up her grave. At the time of her death, her family didn't have a lot of money, so they had buried her in a cheap coffin. So they dug up her body so that they could put her into a nicer final resting place. But the point is, it's such a popular case there that people gathered to watch these men dig up her body so that they could just be there to see it happen. People are still that interested in her story, or were that interested in her story. If you're from Germany, please let me know if people are still very interested, because it has been a long time. So guys, that is the terrible story of Anneliese Michel, who inspired the movie The Exorcism of Emily Rose. It's intense stuff, right? It's crazy. Even if the whole possession thing and all that's not true, it's still super sad because a girl did actually die from this story. This is a true story. Whether she was actually possessed, that's up to you. Do you think that her parents and the priest should have been held more liable for what happened to her? I just don't know. I go back and forth on that a lot. I don't know. Was it really their fault? It seems like they really wanted to help her, and this is what they legitimately thought they needed to do so. But was she possessed? Was she sick? I don't know. Doctors said she was sick, but their treatment wasn't working. And then if you hear, so you can actually go on YouTube and you can search the exorcism tapes. And if you listen to them, it's pretty compelling because it's horrifying. Horrifying. Discretion. Like, no going in, that it's very scary. But you can look up the tapes of the recordings. It's not a fun ride. If you look online, you can also find photos of her during the exorcism and how much she changed physically. Just know that, you can't unsee or unhear this stuff, and it's pretty intense. So today's video is going to be based on the true haunting of Estefania Gutierrez Lazaro and her entire family in the 90s, which is more commonly known as the Vallecas case. And if that's not how you pronounce it and you're from Spain, because this is a popular case in Spain, please forgive me. English is so my first and only language. I am so sorry. Vallecas? Vallecas. Vallequis. I tried. So Estefania and her family's struggles with the paranormal entity that was plaguing their home in the 90s is one of the most popular supernatural phenomena cases in Spain, and it actually inspired the horror movie Veronica, which, if you haven't seen it, 10 out of 10. Highly recommend. It is in Spanish, so if you don't speak Spanish, they do have subtitles, but it is so worth the watch. It's very, very good. I was very impressed and very creeped out, which is hard to do because I'm very, very brave. Very good, very scary, and apparently very true. Okay, I think it's time that we stop talking about it and start being about and start discussing this case, huh? So go ahead, children. Gather around my campfire and let me tell you about the Vallecas haunting. Trying to kill myself. So, to set the tone and take you really there, we're going to be traveling to a southern suburb in South Madrid called the Villa de Vallecas. Please forgive me, my God. Conception and Maximo live together. They're the parents. They live together in a tall brick front multi-unit building in Villa de Vallecas with their 4 children. Of these 4 children, there was one teenage girl, their daughter, Estefania Gutierrez Lazaro, who is going to be a big topic of our discussion here, as I'm sure you gathered from the intro. In early 1991, Estefania had started getting interested in the occult, witchcraft, all things spooky, as us teenagers do. But her parents say it was no more than the average teenager, like her involvement in the spooktacular thing that is the occult. The spooktacular thing that is the occult. She's just minimally into it. Just, casual teen stuff. I don't know about all teens, but I was into that stuff. I'm still into that stuff. Shoot. Anyways, the story starts as they all usually do, as a totally normal day in 1991. Estefania got up and got ready to go to school like she always does. Packed up her stuff, her books, her pencils, whatever it is that you take to school, your binder with all the pictures of your friends and the boys that you like and the celebrity you pretend is your boyfriend. Well, Estefania packed one special thing this day: a Ouija board. So, that day, Estefania and a couple of her girlfriends got together, found a nice little secluded spot so that they could get, hang out, have some girl time, and have a casual little seance at school. Apparently, one of the girls that was taking place in the seance, Estefania's friend, she had a boyfriend who had tragically and unfortunately recently died in a motorcycle accident. She was having some trouble dealing with that, as anyone would. So they were having the seance to try to get in contact with him through the Ouija board. Quick hello, I love you, I miss you, what's the meaning of life, what is the point, all that jazz. All that jazz. I'm going to beat anyone to the punch and say that these brows don't look good. Okay, moving on. So the girls circle around the board and place their fingertips upon a shot glass that they were using as a planchette. And though all the girls participated in sitting there and putting their hands on the board, Estefania was the ringleader and the one calling the shots, asking the questions to the spirit they were speaking to. So, since the girls were choosing to conduct their seance on school grounds, it was only a matter of time before they would get caught, and caught they were. Mid-seance, one of the girls' teachers, which I did see in some reportings called just a teacher, and in some reportings called a nun. I'm not sure if they went to a Catholic school or if perhaps it was dramatized to make it scarier. Either way, nun, teacher, she catches them playing with the Ouija board on school grounds. She's not a fan, not into it, and she freaked out, which lends to believe the nun thing. Unless people in Spain are very religious, I am unfamiliar. So the nun was not into what was happening. She was like, nah, gypsy. And she tried to stop the girls, and in doing so, she damaged the board and broke the shot glass that had been on the board being used as a planchette. In some reports, it says that the nun broke the planchette. In other reports, it says that it just spontaneously exploded on its own. But the one thing that stays consistent is that as it broke, a weird sort of white smoke floated up out of the remains of the glass and was inhaled by Estefania. But it wasn't like she was just and breathed in on her own. It looked like the smoke had a life of its own and was shoved itself inside of her body. Where did the smoke come from? We do not know, but that cannot be good, am I right? No, thank you. Was it a demon? Was it a ghost? Nobody knows, but it's in her nose. Nobody knows, but it's in her nose. There we go. Very good. Hire me for songwriting or something. I don't know. So the nun did her best to stop all the madness, but it seems that the damage had been done. The smoke was inside Estefania, and in doing her Ouija board activities, she did not say goodbye to whatever spirit she was talking to. And apparently that's like Ouija 101. You always say goodbye, and Estefania did not. So almost immediately after the seance was performed, things started going poorly for Miss Estefania. Estefania started to hallucinate. Or did she? Maybe she was just seeing things that other people couldn't see. Either way, she was telling her parents that she was seeing dark shadow creatures, shadow people walking around their home. Estefania would claim that this would be happening mostly at night, so obviously terrified she couldn't sleep, and from that, insomnia ensued. Naturally. Which doesn't make anything any better. While up late at night with this insomnia, Estefania would hear voices all through the night talking in the house, whispering in her ears, so no wonder the girl couldn't sleep. Like, can you bet? Jesus Christ. Then came the seizures. Estefania would go into violent convulsions. At one point, her whole body went completely stiff and her eyes turned completely white. I don't know if I've ever felt more attractive than I do right now, actually. So Estefania would have full-on manic fits where she would start to scream uncontrollably and sometimes bark at her siblings like a dog. Estefania would alternate between having aggressive, really violent episodes where she would scream uncontrollably, rip at her wall, like scratching at her wall till her posters were ripped into complete shreds. She would make deep, guttural sounds that sounded like they were coming from inside her body, like growls, instead of out of her mouth. And then she would switch and go through stages where she was completely silent. She would just kind of sit there in like a trance-like state, not responding to anybody, either whispering to herself quietly or laughing uncontrollably. That is horrifying to me. No, thank you. If my sister did that, I don't know what I would do, but I wouldn't be a fan. No. Speaking of sisters, her sister one night saw her levitate out of her bed. Why is everybody levitating? Why are ghosts always making people levitate? I don't understand. So terrified about what was happening to their daughter, Conception and Maximo started taking her to all kinds of places to try to see what they could do to help her. They took her to medical doctors, they took her to specialists, they took her to mental health professionals, and all of them agreed that there was nothing physically wrong with her. And even though there was clearly something emotionally wrong with her because she was acting friggin' crazy, there was no actual medical diagnosis to explain what was happening to her. So the family was basically just on their own. So 6 months after Estefania's experience with a Ouija board, 6 months of violent outbursts, of seizures, of hallucinations, and just straight terror, right? Estefania was then hospitalized after she had gone into a violent episode where she attacked her younger sister, and it ended in Estefania on the ground, convulsing, foaming at the mouth. Estefania died the day after being admitted to the hospital after the violent attack, and to this day, this otherwise teenage girl, nothing wrong with her, her death is just ruled as unknown, sudden, and suspicious. They don't know what killed her. She just died. Very, very sad, I know. But our story doesn't end there. Because after Estefania's death, the Vallecas haunting continued, but with just Estefania's family. She was gone, so they turned their attention to her family. For over a year after Estefania's death, her family started to experience all the same things that Estefania herself had reported experiencing. They would see dark shadow creatures going through their home at night. They would hear footsteps running through their home at night. They would hear doors slamming on their own at night. Very active at night, these ghosts were. As, ghosts typically are. The family would have lights and kitchen appliances turn on and off by themselves. They would have items in the house move around by themselves when they didn't remember moving them. And they would even have items that would be on shelves fly off the shelves all by themselves. At night, things would get real wild, as, they typically do in these stories. Starting as just auditory hallucinations, the family would start to hear whispering at night in their ears while they slept, but Conception got a little bit more of an intense situation for her. Conception would hear Estefania, her own daughter's voice, screaming in the night, calling to her mother. How horrible is that? Truly. And was it Estefania, or is it a ghost playing a trick on her, as ghosts typically do? I don't know. Additionally, Conception reported that she was actually attacked by a spirit in her bed physically while she slept. Okay, this is what she said happened, okay? She said that while lying in bed, she felt the weight of a full-grown person laying on top of her, making it difficult to breathe. And if that wasn't bad enough, she said that it then she felt like a hand grab onto her hand and hold it down, and another hand grab onto her foot and hold it down. No, I would be so out of there. No, wouldn't you just go? I don't know why people stay. I know money's tough, but like, isn't your life and your peace worth more? I don't know. Maybe that's just me. I don't know. It's like, I don't have a ton of money, okay? But if I thought my apartment was haunted, I'm pretty sure I'd just be like, take the loss and try to go. But I don't know. That's just me. These stories, I'm always like, just go. Just go and go. And Estefania's sister also experienced the same thing. She said that one night while she was sleeping, she woke up because something had grabbed her arm in the night, slamming it aggressively into the wall, physically harming her. No. And it was something that wasn't there because there was no one in her room because it was a heckin' ghost. During the day, the small children would be shoved just across the room by nothing that was there. And there would be items that were on the shelves or on tabletops that would be shoved off of the counters or tabletops, oftentimes in the direction of the children, trying to hit the children. Why? Why are you being mean to kids, demon? The family would hear random bangs throughout the night, as is common in all of these cases. Just demons love to do that. But they had crucifixes in the house, and the crucifixes would be inverted all by themselves. The family got so scared that they actually moved all of their mattresses into the living room so that they could sleep together. And then there was these doors that would block the living room off from the hallway. They'd close the doors and they'd push all the furniture up against the doors because they were like, stay out. We just want to be alone and not be dealing with the demons, right? But demons, crafty little whippers, they would move the furniture and fling the doors open to terrorize the family. Okay, now one of the creepiest things that happened after Estefania's death, hear me out here, it's ridiculous. Her family had taken a photo of her and put it out on an end table, in remembrance of their teenage daughter who tragically died. Well, one day, this photo fell off of the table by itself, and the photo, starting in the center of Estefania's face, spontaneously combusted, burning from the center outward before going out by itself. Okay, this thing spontaneously combusted, and it was reported that only the part of Estefania's face was actually damaged. The frame wasn't damaged, and nothing around where the picture had been was damaged. That's one of the things in this case that's most reported on, is that photo thing, because it's crazy. It's crazy. So, a year after Estefania died, the family just couldn't take it anymore. They were like, okay, this haunting is too much, and they called the police. And I would just love to be on the other end of one of those emergency calls when it comes to a haunting. As I've said before, it's like, okay, ma'am, I'm gonna need you to just calm down. I can't understand you. What? Your house is haunted? Oh, okay, haunted. Yeah. I'll send somebody over right away. Haunted. Something like that. But apparently, the family sounded frantic, and they did send officers over, and it was a rainy night. And when the officers showed up, the family was all standing outside. They would rather get wet than spend any more time in that house. Telling. And when the police entered the home, they witnessed some odd things. First, the officers heard some loud banging coming out of a bedroom in the house. But when they went to investigate this bedroom, there was no one in the bedroom. Huh. That's weird, right? Right. But then they heard the bang again, and it sounded like it was coming from the patio that was off of the bedroom. So they opened the sliding doors, and they looked out there, and again, there was nothing out there. But what was weird, because they were like, dang, that sounded big. It sounded like a boulder rolling across it. But again, nothing there. So while looking around, there was an armoire, like a portable closet, like a wardrobe. Well, they were looking around, and they were next to the armoire when all of a sudden the doors flung open by themselves, almost striking one of the officers in the face. Okay? So they keep going, they're still going through the house, and that's when they come upon this weird brown stain that was present on an end table. And while they looked at it, they saw it growing right before their eyes. A stain, chilling, starts growing right before their eyes. Maybe that was the table that the photo had been on. Maybe the stain is ectoplasm. I don't know. They don't know either. No one knows. That's the point. So the last thing they saw while they were there is they had been, searching the house when they heard a really loud noise come from Estefania's old room. Okay, so when they ran in there was a crucifix that had once been up on the wall, and it was on the floor, and Jesus had been removed from the cross. And then they turned their attention to the wall where it had once been hanging, and there were 3 claw marks next to the spot where it had been, looking like it had been ripped forcibly from the wall. But there was no one in there. So the cops left, because really, what could they do? Like, cops can't do anything in this situation. That's the thing. They're cops. Sorry, that sucks. This is weird. But all of the events that these police officers experienced in the Gutierrez Lozaro home were documented in actual police reports. That's why this case is so popular, because it's one of the very few haunting cases where there is physical evidence, paperwork that shows that someone in power, not connected to the family, believes that it was true. It has an official stamp and everything. They're like, I was there. This is what I experienced. I don't know what it was. I don't know what to tell you, but this is what happened. But anyways, yes, they consider it to be authentic, and they didn't just laugh it off, and they wrote it in their report. And that's what makes it so fantastical and amazing. Is it real? I don't know. Of course, from the police coming and actually writing this report, the case got extremely popular, and with it came paranormal investigators, which is always what seems to happen because, they're investigating the paranormal. This is a paranormal haunting. Cops are like, it's real, so naturally they head over. One paranormal investigator, while in the home, said that they were able to feel the presence of one female that was nice, calm, unassuming, unthreatening, but they could also sense that there was a male entity in the home that was domineering, evil, and up to no good. Another medium who came and visited the home said that she was actually possessed while inside the home. Scary stuff. So the family ended up staying in the home for several years, with the haunting still happening, choosing to live there for whatever reason, and eventually they finally moved out, and when they did, the haunting simply stopped, which seems to be the case in all of our Halloween videos, doesn't it? All you gotta do is go. Just leave. That should be your takeaway from this series. Just leave. So what do you guys think of the story? It's really sad that Estefania actually died. That is a girl who did actually die. And I think it would be pretty messed up for a family to report all of that stuff happening after losing their daughter if it didn't happen. But I don't know. What do you think? So in today's video, we're going to be talking about the terrifying true story that inspired a movie that I actually think is really good that I didn't see a lot of people talking about, that was released in 2009 called The Haunting in Connecticut. That's right, and if you've seen this movie, you might remember in the beginning, those big, bold red letters, based on a true story. Well, that true story is what we're going to be talking about today. So come, gather around my campfire, children, and let me tell you the tale of the haunted funeral. So it all starts in June of 1986 when the all-American family, the Snedeker family, that consisted of Alan, the papa, Carmen, the mama, their niece, and their 3 sons. Well, they pull their car, their moving van, whatever, into the driveway of 208 Meriden Avenue. And when they pull into the driveway, they see the giant white house with its nice little manicured green lawn and its ominous, but perhaps at the time unassuming, red front door. So the family enters the home happily. Who wouldn't after getting such a great deal? You see, the Snedeker family had moved to Southington, Connecticut from upstate New York because their eldest son, Philip, tragically had Hodgkin's lymphoma. And the family needed to move closer to the hospital where Philip was undergoing treatment for his illness. So the grueling expense of the medical bills put together with the fact that these people are raising 4 kids, and let me tell you, that's an expense. Kids ain't cheap. The family was struggling financially. So when they found this big, beautiful house that was big enough to house these 4 kids and 2 adults, which is already so much, plus it was close enough to the hospital for what they were looking for, they jumped at the opportunity without asking why the asking price may have been so low. Had to take out the nose ring. We were having some technical difficulties. I've never painted my whole face before. So anyways, the family enters their new home. They start to get themselves settled, put their stuff away, pick their bedrooms. The kids probably fighting over who gets the big room. But, mommy and daddy get the big room. They get the master. They need the bathroom, whatever. But they aren't in the house for more than 3 hours when Philip, the oldest son, the sixth son, says to his mother, "Mom, this house is pure evil and we need to leave right away." What would you do? What would you do? I don't know. Because on one hand, do you want to trust your son? Or maybe he's angsty about the move. Maybe he doesn't want to move. I don't know. You just put all your money into it. It's a perfect deal. I guess you stay. And that's what they did. They heckin' stayed in the house. So the family did not leave, as I'm sure you can imagine. Otherwise, we wouldn't even be here. But I'm sure they considered leaving once they started to actually look around the house and see what was going on there. Upon looking around the house, it became very clear to the family why it was, in fact, listed so low. While looking around the house, getting the lay of the land, they discovered that in the basement, there was a full-ass embalming room. An embalming room. Ew. Complete with embalming tools and everything. They had just left everything there from when it was a funeral home. Yeah, it turned out this house used to be a funeral home that the owner had just fixed up and then sold to the Snedeker family without telling them what they were getting into. Nope. Rude. False advertising, friend. That is not... You gotta disclose. I'd be pissed. I would be pissed. And considering what they say happens later, you would be pissed too. Well, let me tell you that. Now, did the Snedeker family run for the hills? No, of course not. What an incredible deal this house was. Instead, they converted the basement, where the embalming room was, into a bedroom for the boys to share. Yeah. Good job, Snedekers. While looking around, the family found photos of dead bodies and also toe tags because funeral home. Duh. So, a haunting ensued because, of course, it did. Why else would you and I be here today? Haunting. Halloween. Creepy shit. Let's do it. The only one in the family who noticed anything strange at first was Philip, the eldest son, the sixth son. He started to notice some weird stuff. I mean, he is the one who said, we should probably go. And they were like, calm down, boy. You are just a child. When you're an adult, you'll understand. Or whatever they said to him. So he would claim that he was having visions of the dead and that he would see ghosts walking around the house. His family was just kind of like, Philip, calm down, please, Philip. Everything's okay, son. In particular, Philip would claim to see the spirit of a young man who had long dark hair that went all the way down to his waist. Well, apparently this ghost would visit Philip all the time. Really liked Philip. He would come almost nightly and he would actually be vocal and speak to Philip. But was he a nice ghost to Philip? Was he Philip's friend? No, he was not. He was not Philip's friend. Nacho friend, Philip. He would just stand in the corner like a creep, calling out Philip's name. He'd be like, Philip. Or just stare at him. He would even sometimes threaten Philip. He'd be like, Philip. Philip would look over and be like, scary stuff. So one day while Philip was in the doctor's office getting treatment for his cancer, he asked his doctor if what he was experiencing in his home was normal. Like, can you imagine that conversation? Philip's just like, so doc, hear me out here. There's a dead boy in my house and he's threatening to kill me. Is this like a normal thing? Like a normal teenage experience? I assume what Philip was trying to do was find out if this was maybe a side effect of the treatment he was going through. But it was not, and the doctor ended up diagnosing him as schizophrenic. But was he? Who knows? I don't know. This diagnosis must have made sense to Carmen, because at the time, no one else in her family was experiencing anything, so she didn't really believe Philip when he was, claiming to be seeing these things. But boy, would she believe him soon. So, with whatever was going on with Philip, his personality was changing drastically. The normally kind, if albeit a little sad teenager was now dark, distant, and violent. Philip would do mean things to his younger brothers and then just forget he had done them. At one point, he had taken his little brother and locked him in a chest and then just walked off and forgot that he had put him in there. Or so he said. Maybe he was just being a dick and didn't want to get in trouble, but it was out of character for Philip. At one point, he even attacked his female cousin who was living with them in the house. And after this attack, he ended up being put into a mental hospital for a bit. And while there, his personality went completely back to normal. Now, was that because he was away from the house? Is it because he was getting medical professional help? We don't know, but he got better when he was away from the house. So now that Philip was out of the house, the ghosts needed a new plaything, someone else to hang out with, do things with. So they turned their attention to Mama Carmen. You know, the one who didn't believe Philip at first. Well, she believed him now. So it would start with items being moved around the house that Carmen didn't remember moving, her usual, the normal ghost stuff, but then it turned into full-body apparitions that Carmen would see that would bring with it the smell of rotting flesh. Carmen would be cleaning the kitchen when all of a sudden the faucet would start running red with blood and smell again of the rotting flesh. Once Carmen had been in the shower when the shower curtain wrapped itself around Carmen's face so tight that she couldn't even fall to the ground to release herself. So she started to scream. She was like, this thing's trying to kill me. And her niece ended up coming and having to release her. Though Carmen got the majority of the attacks while the Snedeker family was living in the house, she wasn't the only one because the niece became targeted as well. She said that she would feel the feeling of creatures or a presence moving in on her at all times. And at one point, she said that she could feel them closing in on her to the point that she couldn't move. And at that exact time, Carmen, who had been standing behind her, saw the full outline of a hand running up the back of her niece's shirt. Fuck that. Wow. Having a white face makes your teeth look really good, huh? Trying to think of a time I've looked better. I don't think there was one. I'm just trying to think of how it would feel to have a ghost hand running up the back of your shirt, and it makes me just do a little bit of that action. It makes me so wildly uncomfortable. Ugh. But though all those things sound pretty stinking bad, there was another thing that happened to the family that I think is the worst thing that I read about this entire haunting, and it was rightfully left out of the movie, and you'll understand in just a second. Both Carmen and her husband Alan reported that they were both raped and sodomized by the demons in their home. They would just wake up in the night to a demon on top of them and inside of them. That's when you move, right? I mean, maybe, I don't know, I think maybe that's just me, but I draw the line at ghost rapes. So, the Snedekers decide that it's time to do something. They can't just lie down and take it anymore. So, they call in reinforcements, and of course, a slew of paranormal investigators storm the house, ready to get their proof of the afterlife. And who is with all of these investigators but Ed and Lorraine Warren? Of course they were. So, just a quick side note, when I started looking into this case, when I added this to my list and I started looking into this case, I didn't even know that the Warrens had been involved in this case. They're not included in the movie, so I just chose this case at random. But it seems that any case that was popular enough to be made into a movie, the Warrens were there for. They were there for all of them. And at this point, it honestly feels like we should just change the name of the series to the Warren Files, because these homies are in every single video. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, that means you haven't seen my first couple videos in the series. So go check my video on The Conjuring 1 and The Conjuring 2 if you want more information. But these guys are always there. So the Warrens decided they wanted to get a front row seat to all of the crazy that was happening in the Snedeker home and to get all of the firsthand, the hot gossip, be the first one on the scene. So they actually moved in with the Snedekers into the funeral home for a prolonged period of time. I think it was a couple of weeks, and this isn't something that I saw that they did often. They wanted to investigate and get the whole experience, and boy, oh boy, friends, did they get the whole experience. At one point during their stay, they saw a full-bodied apparition walking down the interior stairs, and when it got close enough to them, it said, "Do you know what they did to us?" No, 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 no. So in staying in the house and doing their investigation with all of their expertise, the Warrens determined that the morticians who had lived in the house prior to the Snedekers moving in practiced in necromancy, and that the house was infused with pure 100% grade A evil. Cage-free, organic evil. And if you don't know what necromancy is, it's like a form of magic, I believe, that you use to communicate with spirits and the dead to try to learn the future. Things like that. Spooky stuff. So the Warrens decided to perform an exorcist on the house, and in doing so said that the house was now safe and demon-free. This house is clean. And that was it. The family lived in the house for a total of 2 years and swear up and down that this was true. They even went on TV and did interviews and all that jazz. And if you are curious about the health of Philip, at that time he did go into remission, but unfortunately his cancer returned later in life when he was an adult, and he did pass away in 2012, 3 years after the release of The Haunting in Connecticut. And so that is the story of the Snedeker family and all of their spooky, scary experiences that they had in the haunted funeral home in Connecticut. What do you think? Do you think it's real? A lot of people discredit this one. A lot of people discredit all of them, but I feel like a lot of people discredit this one in particular because it's so extreme and they stayed through it. And I don't know who would do that. I would be so out of there. Again, my line is ghost rapes. I'm not into it. Maybe people don't believe it, or maybe people don't want to believe it because it's so sensational that if it could happen to somebody else, it could happen to anybody, which means it could happen to you. That's not a threat. I'm not a ghost. I'm not a rapey ghost, okay? And I don't know. As I always say, I don't know if I believe it, but I know it's October. I know it's spooky season. Spooky sneezing. I know it's spooky season, and I had fun looking into this case. I had fun filming it for you. These are really fun because I can be a little less serious because it could be real, it could not be real. With true crime, it is real at somebody's life. It's hard for me to be charismatic and fun because I feel like I don't know how to do that in a way that doesn't feel wrong to me. But in these videos, I can be a little more playful, and I like it. And I like this look we created. What do you think of this? I know this isn't a beret, but it is a tiny little beanie, and it is all that I have, and I kind of like this look. I sent a photo to my friend. She was texting me. She's like, "What are you doing right now?" And I just sent her a photo just when I had the white on, and she was just like, "Holy shit." She wasn't ready. She was drinking her coffee. I think she spit it a little bit, but I like it. I think it's cute. I would do this. White face paint. Full face paint. Real difficult to get smooth. I like the like rustic look that we have going on here is what we call it when it doesn't look perfect. But if I'm honest with you, I was aiming for perfect. It just didn't happen. So, you know, it is what it is. Trial and error. This is my first year ever face painting, body painting. And I think overall it looks pretty dang good, guy. And anyways, guys, that completes this video. Before you leave, please make sure to join the Brat Pack by subscribing and ringing the bell. I know the majority of the people who watch my videos aren't subscribed. It's like 70-something% are not subscribed. What are you waiting for, huh? What are you waiting for, huh? You know, do it because it's a good idea and it would be nice and I would like it. I would like to, you know, have you as a permanent friend. And of course, make sure to let me know what true crime cases you would like to see once Halloween is over. I'm going to be getting into filming those soon, which I'm pretty excited for. And yeah, that's it. Thank you for being here for my first Halloween series. In the 4 years that I've been on YouTube, I've been having a lot of fun with it, and I hope you're enjoying it too. You're tight, this is tight, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye.